We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at House of X issue 1 from 2019 Marvel Comics, written by Jonathan Hickman, art by Pepe Larraz, color art by Marte Garcia, letterer was VC's Clayton Cowles, Tom Muller design, Pepe Larraz and Marty Garcia on cover art, assistant editor was Annalisa Bessa, editor Jordan D. White. Alright, this is the first part of a 6-part miniseries, and I have no idea what's been happening up to this point. Apparently Charles Xavier's back and he is offering a plant to humans. There's apparently 3 variations of this plant and they do different things. One is an antibiotic, one is a pill that will extend human life for 5 years, and then there's a third pill that the flower produces that could cure diseases of the minds in humans. Now there's also 3 outcomes for the mutants as well. Create gateways, a habitat, and then one, it's sort of a tumor of some kind. Now they're on an island. It's the living island of Krakoa. It's been around for a long time. It's been various different books and iterations over the years. So this island, since it's alive, it can communicate with them, and it's building these habitats, and they have these like stargates that they can go through. They act as wormholes that let them travel around, but only mutants. Humans can go through if accompanied by a mutant and they get permission from the island. Marvel Girl's wearing her traditional costume, which is cool. She actually looks a little younger. I'm not sure what's going on. We only see Xavier kind of briefly. Apparently the humans have got this like space station / sentinel. It's very odd. It's a doomsday protocol for humanity. And then we also see some of the mutants breaking into Fantastic Four's headquarters to steal information from them. And when one of them gets caught, Cyclops shows up and issues what could be considered a threat. So even though they committed an act of terrorism by stealing information on American soil, they expect to get their person back, and they get real haughty about it. So effectively what they're turning the mutants into are villains. So it looks like we're going yet again as evil mutants. Magneto even kind of proclaims that, and he's very arrogant about it. I don't know if I like where this is going. So far it just looks like they're turning all the mutants into evil monsters. If that's what they want to do, hey, Marvel's been running into the ground for a while now. What's one more franchise, right? For $6, I don't really think it was worth it. There's a lot of wasted space in here. There's a lot of white pages with little dialogue boxes that are supposed to be like this futuristic computer look. It's just a lot of wasted space. It's probably 7 or 8 pages in the book that are like this. The story was okay, but I like buying books about heroes, and these characters do not come off as heroes to me. I don't want to read supervillain books. If you're into supervillain books, you'll probably like this quite a bit. I thought the art was only okay. I'm not a big fan of this style. People look disproportionate at times, and other times they look fine. It just seems like a very inconsistent style. My problem with the book is mainly that these people that have been heroes for many decades, up until the last 10 years or so, they're now evil, and I don't like that. I don't find that to be appealing. I don't want to read that story. I don't really care about that. I'll give it another issue, but I want to read about superheroes, and so far the X-Men look like they're villains now. So if they want to do that, that's cool. It's well done for that type of book, but I really have no interest in that. So this is well written. The art style for the type it isn't bad. It's pretty good. It's not a style I particularly like. I think it's a little disproportionate. The cover's really cool. It really sold me on it, but there's a lot of wasted space in here that is kind of pointless. They don't really elaborate too much on what's actually going on, so it feels like I'm jumping into the middle of the story, that I should know something that I don't, and it looks like they're just gonna make the X-Men into these sort of arrogant godlike beings, almost like Eternals or the New Gods. And if I wanted to read that, I'd read the Eternals or the New Gods. And there's very much a superiority complex buried in here. The mutants are very arrogant. They even go ahead and read the minds of the people that are supposed to be the representatives for the humans, like the ambassadors and that, they just read their minds, which, you know, should be considered a form of mental rape, I would think. But again, their arrogance is very high, and they believe they are more important, and they're even called Homo sapiens superior. If they want to make the X-Men supervillains now, that's cool, but I really don't have any interest in that. So I thought it was well written for the type of story it is. It's just not a story I want to read. So I'll pick up issue 2 and see if it improves, but as far as I'm concerned, it's overpriced at $6. They had toned down all the weird white computery pages that are just fluffy text design. It probably would have been a $4 book and been fine. But $6 I think is a little overpriced for a story about supervillains that I used to like as heroes. I'll still recommend it if you want to read a book about superheroes turning into villains. Otherwise, not really my thing. That's just my opinion. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you want to help the channel in other ways, links are in the description and on the About page, and we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at House of X issue 2. This is part of the 6-part miniseries from 2019, published by Marvel Comics, written by Jonathan Hickman, Pepe Larraz artist, Marte Garcia color artist, VC's Clayton Cowles letterer, Tom Muller designer. The regular cover art was by Pepe Larraz and Marte Garcia. I have the Alan Davis and Edgar Delgado variant cover with Phoenix, or with Jean Grey more specifically, which I like that cover. It's really well done. It makes a cool pinup, but doesn't really tell you anything about what's going on in the issue, which is really my problem with variant covers. Unfortunately, this was the last copy available, so I kind of got stuck with it. But it's really well done. I like Alan Davis's art quite a bit. I kind of wish he had done the interior art, but here we are. So we've got a whole bunch of wasted space with more of these white pages. There's 5 pages of white within the first 10 pages. So we got these white things with a little blurb of text, then we've got some story, and then we got a 2-page spread with the credits and copyright information, and then we've got a 2-page spread with like, what, 12 paragraphs tops that could have been all wedged on one page easily, and that's all just background stuff. This is a show don't tell thing, guys. Come on, there's a lot of these white pages that are just wastes of space. This could have been a $4 book if they had taken that out. As is, it's a $5 cover price book. I had to pay cover price. I am not happy about that. And now the story is that they've retconned Moira Taggart, and she is now somebody with a mutant power. How she managed to hide that for all these years is kind of a mystery. It seems to be explained kind of that she's like a blank spot, so maybe Charles and Jean Grey couldn't read her mind when she was dying 20 years ago, sharing her final thoughts with them. So I suppose that's a possibility. That's the only thing I can think of. But she becomes much more heavily involved in the X universe, where she has been reincarnating through the same lifetime. It's sort of like Quantum Leap, the TV series, where she can only live within the time frames of from when she was born the first time to when she died the first time. So she constantly relives that life. But she changes things over the course of time, even teaming up with villains several times, murdering people, etc. Well, this time she has changed things again. We see a timeline which is about 4 pages of wasted, 6 pages of wasted space, followed by a list of the reading order, and a back page that has nothing to do with anything. Pretty annoying. But the 6th life is not mentioned, so this may all be what happened during her 6th life, which would effectively be, oh, it's all a dream! In many respects, that would make me happier. Overall, this was a much better issue than the first one. This should have been the first issue of the miniseries. It explains a little bit more about kind of what's going on and how a lot of this seems to be Moira's doing. What exactly her end goal is, or the end goal of her and Charles Xavier, more specifically, is still very nebulous, and I don't know if it's even going to be resolved in this miniseries. As near as I could tell, they're just turning the X-Men into villains, and I don't really find that interesting, but this was a significantly better issue. The mutant destiny ties herself to Moira, and that was a little, I don't know, that seemed a little forced. There could be some serious plot flaws with that one. But But I don't know. This was a really well written issue. I just don't like the direction they're going. I think that Jonathan Hickman has a lot of history to untangle with the last 20 or so years of the X-Men being pretty heavily abused by writers, and they were made into villains several times, which is why I haven't been reading X-Men, honestly. Plus, there's a lot of really bad writing and really bad art. Age of X-Men. All in all, I would say there's some issues I have with the way they're handling the continuity, but I don't know. It could be done well, and it could fix a lot of problems that were with the X-Men, but I don't think they're going to do that. I don't have faith that Marvel's going to make the X-Men into heroes. They seem to want them fighting the wage gap in India and using dank memes as weapons. Maybe Jonathan Hickman can save the X-Men. I don't know. I've heard he's a really good writer. I'm not that familiar with his work. What I've read of it is he is a good writer, but is he going to write the characters well and in a way that I want to read? The art is pretty solid. I'm not a huge fan of the style, but the Sentinels looked really cool, and overall it was pretty decent. Some of the backgrounds need some work or detailing, but I understand that they're on time constraints and nobody wants a lag like they did with Doomsday Clock over at DC. I would say if you're into the X-Men, this is probably a good time to jump back in. If you're looking for the X-Men to be heroes ever again, that's probably never going to happen. It's going to be more moral relativism, ambiguity, and hackneyed, forced social commentary. But I have a slim sliver of faith that they're going to do something good with the X-Men here. I know that will likely be crushed because Marvel doesn't seem to care about what its fans want. If this goes well, maybe I'll pick up a couple issues of the regular X title, but I suspect we're all going to be let down and it's going to be more of the same garbage they've been shoveling at us for the past 2 decades. That being said, I'd recommend it. If you are a fan of Hickman, you'll probably like this. If you're a fan of the X-Men being sort of counter-cultured revolutionaries or villains, then you'll probably like this. If you want to see them be heroes again, like in the Claremont era, yeah, I wouldn't hold out a lot of hope on that one, but you may find something here. I don't know where they're going with this, but I don't have a lot of faith that it's going to be something I enjoy, because Marvel's just done nothing but slap its fans in the face for the last decade, and I don't see that trend changing based on the social media and the comics they're producing. So that being said, I'll recommend it for those reasons, but not if you want a hero story. That's just my opinion. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you want to help the channel in other ways, links are in the description and on the About page, and we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at House of X issue 3 of 6. This is the miniseries from 2019, written by Jonathan Hickman, art by Pepe Larraz. Marte Garcia was the color artist, VC's Clayton Cowles letterer, Tom Muller designs, cover by Pepe Larraz and Marte Garcia. I have one of the variant covers, but I'm not sure who did it because it doesn't break it down by that. So it's either by Mike Huddleston, Mohammed Asrar, and David Carell, Sarah Pacelli and Dean White, Jeff Deck, Scotty Young, or Jonathan Taylor Christopher. One of those guys worked on this cover. I like the concept of the cover, but the jaw lines look a little weird. Otherwise, it's not too bad. Annalisa Bisa was the assistant editor, Jordan D. White editor, C.B. Cebulski editor-in-chief. Okay, so the X-Men have pinpointed certain technological things that can lead to Nimrod being created, and they want to avoid that. So they decide to go attack the mother mold that's orbiting the sun, the one that the secret organization Orcus is going to use in the event that the X-Men try and take over the world. So it kind of looks like that's exactly what the X-Men are doing. Also, Emma Frost goes into a secret court where Sabretooth is being held, and they just declare that he has diplomatic immunity despite his crimes, his egregious crimes, which does not earn them any respect or friends, and in fact makes them look quite villainous because they are protecting somebody from committing crimes based on diplomatic immunity only because he's a mutant. So all mutants now have diplomatic immunity, which means they can run around killing whoever they want and they're not going to get in trouble for it. That doesn't make them look like supervillains at all. Nah. So far, This series is well done. The art's pretty good. I do like the art overall. The storyline, though, I don't like supervillain stories, so I'm not particularly thrilled with this. I don't know where they're going with this. It looks like they're turning the X-Men into supervillains. Finally, they've reached their apex of hating humanity. They call them apes and other insults, and that's kind of what we get, is that they're all more or less brainwashed cultists who don't see people that aren't mutants as anything worthy of respect. They've sort of elevated themselves above humanity, and they believe themselves to be a greater being than humans. And I don't particularly like that. I like reading comic books about heroes, not about villains, and it looks like they're leaning a lot more toward making the X-Men into villains. Maybe not intentionally, but that's how it's coming across to me. I am going to read the next issue, but in the long term, I probably won't be reading X titles after these miniseries, because I don't really want to buy books about supervillains. It's not really my thing. So if you're into that, though, I would definitely recommend this. It's a solid comic book all around. It is an interesting read, but I really have no long-term interest in reading books about supervillains. So as far as this miniseries goes, it's very well done, but if they're going to turn the X-Men into supervillains, I have no interest in that in the long run. But that's just my take on it. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you want to help the channel in other ways, links are in the description and on the About page. And of course, we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we are looking at House of 10 issue 4, alternately titled House of X because Marvel's marketing department has no idea what they're doing. It's written by Jonathan Hickman, art by Pepe Larraz. Marte Garcia was the color artist. BC's Clayton Cowles on letters, Tom Muller design. Pepe Larraz and Marte Garcia were the cover artists. I thought the cover was pretty cool actually. That kind of is what happens, but it's very dynamic. I like it. Annalisa Bisa was the assistant editor. Jordan D. White editor, C.B. Cebulski, editor-in-chief. As usual, you're going to hear my complaint about these wasted pages of white techno-babble. Giant waste of time and space that costs you an extra $1, otherwise this would have been a $3.99 book, I'm sure. So we go through some of the pro-mutant propaganda, talking about the various incidents where some random humans killed people, and of course everybody blames all of humanity for that. Well, the X-Men do anyway. So the X-Men go up to the Mother Mold using their Shi'ar scout ship and infiltrate that. After the events of the previous issue, they're recovering from that, but they manage to infiltrate the station and kill a whole lot of people. And the humans strike back trying to defend the Mother Mold because they think that's the last bastion of hope that humanity has. Well, things do not go very well, and it's a pretty rough issue. There's some casualties here, but it looks like there's a lot of entrenchment on both sides, especially with the X-Men. They are definitely the aggressors in this situation, even though they think that it's one of the things that leads to the creation of Nimrod. They don't really explain this to anyone, they just sort of go ahead and start murdering people. Yeah, granted, a lot of the people involved in creating the Mother Mold are not good people. The X-Men still went up there to destroy it and ended up killing a lot of people. Wolverine definitely killed a lot of people. So overall, I think they are turning the X-Men into villains, and they obviously are concerned more about protecting mutants, who they see as superior. They even call themselves Homo Superior instead of Homo Sapiens, and they view themselves as above and different and better than the humans. That's creating a lot of strife and conflict, obviously, but I don't really like the direction this is going, where the X-Men are villains now, or heading in that direction from the look of it, because I don't see any reason why they wouldn't be considered villains for what they're doing here. So that being said, the issue was pretty well done. The art is pretty solid, but I don't really like the direction, so I'm kind of annoyed with the whole thing. This storyline doesn't have a lot of resolution to it so far. We're not really feeling like we're getting anywhere, but it is pretty well done. Hopefully it'll make more sense when the next issues come out. But so far this issue was really brutal and a lot happened, and it was kind of surprising but kind of not. I think I know where they're going with this, but it's hard to tell at this point, and it's pretty obvious there's a lot more going on than what we're seeing so far. So this is pretty decent issue. It's not a good jumping on point for the series though. If you're looking to get into it, you'll definitely want to start with the first issues, but they are rewriting a lot of X-Men history with House of 10 and Powers of 10. Unfortunately, you'll have to get both series to understand anything that's going on. Otherwise, you'll be completely lost and it'll make zero sense. So that being said, I would recommend it if you like separatist movements or nobility, crushing the peasantry, because that's kind of what's going on here, I think. I know a lot of people disagree with me on that, and that's fine. I just don't particularly like what I'm seeing of the direction of the X-Men so far. But this was definitely the best issue so far of the series, and that is saying something. I did enjoy this issue, even though I don't like the direction the book is taking. That being said, that's just my take on it. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you want to help the channel in other ways, links are in the description and on the About page. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we are looking at House of X, or House of 10, issue 5, more accurately, but Marvel's marketing department has made it confusing, so a lot of people are still unclear on what the title of this miniseries actually is. This is, of course, the miniseries from Marvel Comics from 2019, written by Jonathan Hickman, art by Pepe Larraz, Marte Garcia was the color artist, VC's Clayton Cowles letterer, Tom Muller design, cover artist Pepe Larraz and Marte Garcia. I have a variant edition, but I don't know who did it. There's no name on it, so I have to assume that it was either Mike Huddleston or David Nakayama or Sarah Pichelli and Dean White or David LaFuente and Matthew Wilson or John Taylor, Christopher, or Scotty Young. Assistant editor Annalisa Bisa, Jordan D. White editor, CB Spolsky editor-in-chief. So it looks like Hickman is committing to the cult-like nature and the superiority of the mutants within the Marvel Universe. So after the events of the previous issues, we learn how there is a way to recover people, and Storm introduces everyone, and it is incredibly cult-like with the way they chant mutants and raise their fist in unison. It has a very socio-political kind of feel to it, very cult-like and almost like a militant movement. So they are definitely going in a separatist way, and that is confirmed later by Apocalypse, who declares that he is proud of them and that the mutants have finally become what he intended them to be, and that they should assert their dominance over the world. That, in my mind, makes the mutants and this whole island of Krakoa into villains. They are out for world domination and to take over. Instead of living in coexistence with humanity, they are there to dominate humanity and to crush it, because they believe themselves to be the superior race. So I don't particularly care for that. Of course, as I've stated, I'm not a big fan of villain books, and I think that's going to mean I'm probably not going to enjoy how this miniseries ends or the upcoming X titles. I'll see how this ends and maybe pick up a few of those titles, but if they're going to all be villains now, I have no interest in that. All in all, I thought this was a pretty decent book. As far as the writing quality goes, it's not for me, but it's definitely well written. The art's pretty solid. I had no issue with that. One thing I did take interest in is the way Wolverine, when he's back, how did they recover his adamantium? Like, adamantium is supposed to be incredibly rare. How does he have adamantium on his skeleton again? And you have to have read the previous issues to understand what I'm talking about, or you're making the inference that I'm putting down. But why is that not addressed, where the adamantium is coming from after the events of the previous House of 10 and Powers of 10 story that we looked at? I'm unclear on that, because it wasn't stated that it was recovered or anything. So I'm curious how they're going to explain away that. Otherwise, the X-Men are effectively immortals now, and they are going to dominate the planet. I don't know if this is leading up to something later down the road, but I have very little interest in villain books, so I'm probably not going to pursue it. But I will recommend this book for people that do like villain books, or that are buying into the last decade or so of X titles where the X-Men have become more of a militant separatist movement and into like almost a religious religious cult. I do find it interesting that Charles never takes off Cerebro. I think that may come into play later in different storylines, but for now, this just isn't for me, but I can see the quality is here, and I'm definitely going to recommend it for people that are interested in the rise of a supervillain army. So that being said, that'll do it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you want to help the channel in other ways, links are in the description and on the About page. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at House of 10, Issue 6. Such a stupid name. I'm calling it House of X, because their marketing team didn't tell me it's House of 10, so it's House of X. Jonathan Hickman wrote this, Pepe Larraz artist, Marte Garcia and Dave Carell did colors, BC's Clayton Cowles was letterer, Tom Muller design, Pepe Larraz and Marte Garcia were the cover artists. I have the regular cover. Yeah, it looks like Storm has a weird face, and I'm pretty sure she wants to talk to my manager. Annalise Bisa was the assistant editor, Jordan D. White editor, CB Cebulski editor-in-chief. X-Men go full supervillain in this issue. They have a council, and they are spending most of the issue judging Sabretooth, and wow, talk about fate worse than death. It's unbelievably kind of evil, in my opinion, as to what they do with him. But the X-Men are celebrating, along with all the other mutants. We see that this is kind of the establishment of their new headquarters. I don't know how these new rules they have are going to affect the X-Men. A lot of the space in the back is kind of wasted with these like maps of Krakoa and a bunch of the usual wasted space, reading order of the books, and little quotes from people that take a full page for some reason, even though it's one sentence. The art is solid. A lot of the stuff I can't tell you because it'll ruin stuff that's in the book. I don't like the portrayal of Mr. Sinister. He seems like he's got severe mental problems, and he's not the Machiavellian mastermind I remember him as. So I think that he's kind of an annoying character in this. He's supposed to be scary, not silly. But overall, I thought it was a well done issue. I just don't like supervillain books, and this whole thing is doomed to fall apart if they were to try it in real life, especially with the little nudgings that certain members with telepathy have been doing previously. So I think that this is probably a setup for another fall. If it's not, they are turning these characters into effectively radicalized people. I understand that they've retconned Wanda so that she's not a mutant anymore, so the whole House of M thing has effectively made her into one of their greatest monsters. Although, let's just overlook Cassandra Nova, because, you know, that violates the narrative. So they take, of course, the people that have attacked them previously in the past and made them into a bunch of Hitlers that the whole world apparently just looked the other way on. I don't like the direction it's going. I think they're setting them up to be kind of supervillains. It could provide interesting stories. I just don't think that's something I'm particularly interested in. So I can recognize this is a really well done book, and it's leading to some new direction for the X-Men where they just go full on supervillain, even though they don't think they are. But it's not something I'm particularly interested in. I already ordered the first couple of issues of some of the new series, so I'm going to be reviewing those. Maybe it'll get better. We'll see where Hickman takes us. As far as the miniseries goes, buying this by itself is not going to make much sense. You have to have Powers of X as well for this to make any coherent sense. Also, I think in the broader context, even that much isn't going to be a full satisfying story. This is all just an ad for the new X-Men series. So nothing actually gets resolved in this issue. It's just a setup to what's coming. I'd be more excited for it if I was into supervillains, but right now I'm not particularly interested. They've changed the characters a little too much for my particular taste, but we'll see how it goes. Maybe the new series will be good. But that's just my take on it. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you want to help the channel in other ways, links are in the description and on the About page. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one.